Teaching English Radio India.
A radio series for teachers of English.
Brought to you by the British Council.
Hello, I'm Manisha Dak and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another program in the series Teaching English Radio India. As usual, we will be hearing the opinions and ideas of teachers from all over India who are facing the challenge of large classes and few resources. Our subject today and a big challenge for all of us is correcting written work, an activity that can take up a lot of time. And to help our discussion, here are some of the teachers we will meet today.
I'm Chetna from Delhi.
I'm Khalik from Muradabad in UP.
I am Manju. I am from Calcutta.
My name is Deena. I'm from Madikeri in Karnataka.
We ask students to write sentences and paragraphs and stories, sometimes in class and sometimes for homework. As a result, teachers receive a great pile of papers and notebooks to correct. And out comes that red pen and we prepare for a long night. It can be hard work being a teacher, especially with a really big class. Well, our subject today is how to encourage accuracy in written work and how to correct written work so that students understand their mistakes. Making mistakes is a natural part of learning. It is from our mistakes that we learn and improve. So how should we correct mistakes in students' writing? We asked teacher Chetna about the way it's traditionally been done.
A typical way will be that the teacher actually takes a red pen and marks all the mistakes. When they see their notebook, which is marked all in red, with the teacher having corrected practically every word, I think the student actually loses confidence and doesn't really know whether he knows something or he doesn't know anything at all. Yeah, so instead of building the confidence, we actually destroy it.
When we are learning a language, we all make mistakes, a lot of them. Teachers typically collect all the homework and identify every single error. By marking all the mistakes, they all seem to have equal importance. Therefore, it is more difficult for students to focus on the important errors. That's why Chetna says that if we point out every single error, students can get discouraged. If everything is covered in corrections, they can switch off and lose all confidence about writing and probably won't learn from the mistakes we spent ages correcting.
Written work can be corrected in different ways. It could be either the teacher correcting everybody's work, or it could be students correcting each other's work.
Deena points out that you can sometimes allow the students to correct each other. It's called peer correction. If it works, then it also saves a lot of unnecessary work for the teacher. Khalik has tried this with his students.
Previously, I was correcting all errors of my students myself, and that was actually very much time consuming. So now I have given this responsibility to self-correction. I tell you, they become so happy when they correct. They are sometimes very enthusiastic. It is time saving for me also, and they learn from each other because they are having dictionaries also with them.
Yes, Khalik found that by getting his students to correct each other's written work, not only was he saving time, but also the students were more enthusiastic. So Khalik gives more responsibility to his students by getting them to correct each other's mistakes and making sure that they have access to dictionaries so they can look up what they don't know rather than passively being told. If you haven't tried peer correction, then a simple way to start is to dictate a few sentences to your students, ask them to get into pairs and to swap their papers over. Each one has to correct his partner's paper. To help, you can then write the correct sentences on the board and walk around checking a few examples to make sure everyone has got the right idea.
You're listening to Teaching English Radio India, a series for teachers of English, brought to you by the British Council.
We're talking about correcting errors in written work, and it's time to visit a classroom for a special kind of auction.
Good morning, students. Good morning, ma'am. I'll start one activity today that is called sentence auction. Okay? I will divide the class into 4 groups, and four of you will be one group. So I'll write down.
That is Manju, who's about to do a sentence auction with her students. She's writing up several sentences, some of which are correct and some of them have errors. The students have to decide which are the correct sentences and offer to buy them. Manju's students have spotted some deliberate mistakes.
Ma'am, I will not buy the sentence.
And what about Ganesh, your group? You have to buy this sentence?
When I do this, I usually put the students in groups, and together they have to decide which sentences they want to buy. The ones that get the most correct sentences are the winners. A sentence auction is just one activity that draws your students' focus to accuracy in writing. It is a simple idea that you can adapt.
Because since the theme is on Delhi, that's why I have specially mentioned in Delhi only. Otherwise, purpose is encourage them, to motivate them in a writing activity to find out the grammatical mistakes. It was about verbs and tenses also, and active also.
Manju is using it to help focus on past tenses, but it can fit anything you wish to concentrate on. And this becomes really effective if you take real errors made by your students, without mentioning their names, of course. So far, what teachers are telling us is that it's no good just correcting all the errors, because students don't get to think about their mistakes. They also say that students correcting each other's work or peer correction creates an interest in the students, and they take more responsibility for their own learning. Okay, but what is the real purpose of pointing out mistakes? Here's Deena again.
Error correction shouldn't be about trying to tell our students that they're wrong. It should be about giving them a chance to do better at what they're doing.
Yes, to do better. What else? This is Chetna.
Well, the student at some point of time needs to know the mistakes he makes. So if the teacher doesn't correct him at some point of time, he'll continue to make those mistakes.
I agree. Unless students are aware that they have made a mistake, they'll carry on making the same mistake over and over. The next question has to be, all right, we don't want to embarrass students with too many red marks. We don't want to destroy their confidence. So then, how do we make students aware of their mistakes? This is where a marking scheme comes in. Have you used this method? Chetna explains her 2-part system for drawing students' attention to their written mistakes. First, she underlines errors and uses a system of symbols.
Well, most of the learners actually like all errors to be corrected. Now that is not really possible. So therefore, at the very beginning in the first class itself, when I start teaching, I give them a list of symbols which tells them that, okay, if I write WW, what does it mean? So WW probably would be wrong word. Or if I have just P written, what does that mean? So that's punctuation. Then you have T is for tenses. And then you have WO is wrong order. And there are many more. So once I have that list of symbols and I give it to them, then I just write the symbols itself so that the student understands the error that he or she has made.
So the first part of a marking scheme is to establish a code, that is, symbols, that will tell the students the nature of their mistake. Notice that the teacher is not telling the students what exact mistake was made, but only that there is a mistake. For example, If a word is marked SP, there is a spelling mistake. But it's up to the students to find out what that mistake is and correct it. If there's a T, the teacher doesn't say what tense it should be, only that it's not the right tense. Students have to find out what the correct tense is. Chetna establishes the list of symbols that are appropriate for a student's level. Mala also used a system like this in her work as a teacher trainer, but she negotiated the codes. At the front of the training room, Mala puts up a piece of written work, which on purpose has lots and lots of errors. With her teachers, she goes through the passage word by word, sentence by sentence, asking, "What's wrong with this?"
We collaboratively corrected it. Now what happened is we created a code together. It was a negotiated code which the students and the teacher created together. Now this was a code which my students understood because it was they who suggested it.
Basically, it's very similar as far as it is still a code of symbols. The only difference is that the students establish which symbols stand for which errors. So long as everyone agrees on the code, that's the important thing. Let's go back to Chetna's suggestions for correcting written mistakes. She is on her second point, where the students focus on a specific aspect of their writing.
We tell the student before the written task that in this particular written task, I'm only going to look at your punctuation. So you only mark the errors in punctuation. So he actually understands that, okay, these are the mistakes. And in the next one could focus on tenses and so on and so forth.
By focusing on only one aspect, students don't have to worry about other mistakes they may have made. That way, they can really concentrate. Well, we are almost out of time, but there is one more point, and it is a very important point. This is Dina.
I think it's very important that we as teachers not just constantly pick on what they're doing wrong, but also praise them for what they've done right. If a sentence is grammatically correct, then, you put a star next to it to say that this was a really good sentence and well done. And, it was not only accurate, but there was some really good language used in there as well.
Yes, indeed. We all appreciate a few compliments and respond well to encouragement. Today, we have been looking at dealing with errors in written work. What have teachers told us? We heard that covering our students' notebooks with red ink and corrections can harm their confidence. Peer correction, students marking each other's work with your guidance, can save time and make students more aware of their mistakes. And using dictionaries can be encouraged. Get students actively involved in spotting errors with activities like sentence auction. Instead of writing in corrections, we can introduce a marking scheme. This will help learners to think for themselves and become more aware of their mistakes. One basic marking scheme highlights errors using symbols such as SP for spelling, GR for grammar, PREP for preposition, P for punctuation, and WO for word order. But some teachers prefer to use a code that is agreed with the students. We can sometimes focus on just one aspect of a student's written work, such as only grammar or only spelling. That way, they are not distracted by other possible errors and can concentrate on what you have selected. And don't forget to encourage your students with lots of compliments. Well, that's about it for today. I hope that you have enjoyed the program and that our teachers have given you plenty of ideas for your own classroom. So until next time, this is Manisha Dak saying goodbye.